When I was 18, I was very fortunate to be taken out of the Royal Ballet School to join the Birmingham Royal Ballet by renowned choreographer and at the time, director of the company, Sir David Bintley. Since leaving rather abruptly, I have at times felt really sad, unsure if I would ever find my peace of giving up on my dream. But the journey I'm on now gave me the courage to reach out to this magnificent man. It gives me great pleasure to introduce David Bintley as my ultimate special guest. David Bintley Cbe has created famous ballets such as Still Life at the Penguin Cafe, Hobson's Choice, Beauty and the Beast, Gallentries, and Carmina Burana. We talked about David's journey, which had so many incredible stories that I'd never heard. It was wonderful to see that passion and drive really do give you that bit extra when it comes to being a successful artist. I think you're probably on the edge of your seat for this one. Are you ready? Let's go. Well, like I said, I just can't quite believe how lucky I am to have you in the studio with me today. What an honour.
Well, we're nearly neighbours, aren't we?
We are nearly neighbours. So tell me, what was your journey into ballet?
Oh, gosh. It's a long, long time ago since it started. I went on stage when I was about 4 or 5 at the local Sunday school. They used to do, every autumn, they used to do a show with all the little kids. And it was very primitive. I mean, literally, it was planks on the back of pews and car headlamps for lights. And I was stage struck. I mean, I was literally stage struck at 4 or 5 years old. And every time this concert came around, I was in it and I absolutely loved it. I have the vividest of memories of it. And one particular year, I think I was a grand old age of 9 or 10, and I was doing an important part. And my sister went to a local dance class, and somebody suggested that instead of just standing there and singing this song, I might get some actions to do from this teacher. So I learned some actions. And then this teacher suggested perhaps that I might go to a class. And I, at that time, as I say, anything to do to get on a stage. And my sister was going to this class and she was getting on stage doing, concerts and festivals and things like this. Nice. So that was it. It was my ticket to get on stage. And then from that point onwards, I can't quite remember at what point, I think I saw the Nutcracker, and I think that was probably it, that I saw that, and that was magical. I saw John Gilpin, who was like the greatest and the best known classical dancer at that time. And I didn't know, of course, then, but I saw him doing it. And there was a little girl doing Clara, and, like all children that have aspirations in that direction, when they see other children on stage, they get very, well, why is that not me? So absolutely. So that was it, and it was just to get on stage. But then at some point, it really clicked that I wanted to do ballet, a whole variety of things. Nureyev was around at that time. Oh. He was a much bigger figure, just in general life. He wasn't just a dancer. Yes. He was the fifth Beatle. He was this amazing, charismatic person as well as an amazing dancer. So all of those things made me go, I want to be in the ballet. And then, of course, everybody said, well, you're not good enough and you won't be able to, and all of that. And that just made me even more determined. Yeah. So I got to better teachers. I got to more classical teachers, and set my sights on getting to the Royal Ballet School, the upper school, because I was too old hadn't started dancing till I was 10, 11, which is usually the age, as you know, that you would go to a vocational school like the Royal Ballet Junior School. But I got to the senior school, skin of my teeth, and that was it. I didn't have a great time there. I had a difficult time there, but managed to get into Sadler's Wells Royal Ballet, as much through my acting ability and the fact that I had, by the time I was 18 or 19, I'd had something like 14 years of stage experience. So that was a rarity for somebody coming out of the Royal Ballet School, because you don't get many opportunities to do anything except basically class and, come out of what we thought of as the sausage factory at that time. The right height, the right look, the right physical attributes. I had none of them, but I had all of this other stuff and choreography. I mean, even at that age, I didn't know what a choreographer was. I didn't know what a choreographer did, but I was a choreographer and I was doing it. I was just telling people what to do, just bossing people about. I found I liked that. No, but that was all there in the background. So, when it came to being spotted, it wasn't for being spotted for the usual things.
You had a stage presence.
Yeah, we did. At the school, at the end of the year, they used to do this thing where all the kids kind of let their hair down and did a show. And it was everything from people might do some choreography, some quite serious choreography, to the rest of us who just were taking the piss out of the teachers and did all sorts of odds and ends. I mean, one boy actually sang My Way, the Frank Sinatra song, in a suit with a bow tie on. Literally. Wow. But I did this song and dance, which I'd been doing on the dance festivals, which was from cabaret. So I did.
Nice.
I saw cabaret when I was a kid. I saw it every week for 3 weeks running in Manchester. I used to go to a ballet class there and came out after and went to see cabaret. And I think I was only about 14, 15 at the time. So I shouldn't have been let in because it was X-rated.
Yes, I was going to say.
I just fell in love with that film.
Yeah.
And when it came to doing the song and dance number, because the first school I went to used to do all those dance festivals. So I had song and dance numbers. And I said, I want to do that. I want to do this character and these songs. So I did that, and I won the All England song and dance competition. Yes. And I did that number on one of these school shows at the end. And at that point, the headmistress of the school really didn't like me, really thought I had nothing. Most people had written me off. I'd had a pretty serious knee operation. I had a meniscectomy. Almost immediately I went to the school at the Christmas of the start of that season, and then was left out of pretty much everything. And then I did this number at the end of the year, and everybody just went. And that sort of changed my life. So when I came back the next year, things weren't rosy. Again, I had a kind of a stomach thing, which was a problem at the beginning, and then I was more or less given my marching orders. It was more or less, well, no use, nobody's interested in you, go away. But then for some weird reason, I did the choreographic group that year, and I won the Ursula Morton, if you remember that choreographic competition. And at the same time, somebody had heard about me doing this number and asked me to do something in a friend's Christmas party thing. It was really odd. But they said, do you, this old Leslie Edwards, who's one of the great old character dancers, he used to run the Friends organisation, or be part of it. And he used to do the Christmas party every year. And he said to me, do you know Max Miller? The cheeky chappie, from the wartime comedian. I'm like, No, of course not. How on earth would I know Max Miller? And he said, well, a little bit like the entertainer, in John Osborne's play. And I'm like, he said, well, I thought I might like to do that at the Opera House. I was like, yes.
Yes, and I know all those names you just said.
Whoever those people are, yes, I'll do that. You're asking me to do a solo at the Royal Opera House. Yeah, I can do that.
Amazing.
So I did this, and then they decided to do Coppelia for the school performance, and they put me down for Coppelius because they could see that I'd done all this, and that was it. My life kind of changed. So
Wow.
I literally went from zero to hero in just a matter of months.
Wow.
But apart from that, I had a hateful time at the school. It was awful.
Oh, that's sad to hear. But it's really good that they realised that you had something, and it's good that they did see it in time as well. Those performances where you could just do anything. Thank God.
Yeah, well, it's yeah. I mean, it was just I don't know. Somebody was smiling on me at that particular time, and I've always looked for that in people, in the dancers that I was looking for the company. I've always looked for that personality. I've not always found it, and sometimes I've been quite wrong about it. But I am interested in people who have something different to offer, and I like fighters. I like people who are handicapped in some kind of way, that are not given the greatest of instruments. If you think of a dancer like Robert Parker, for instance, so you wouldn't look really twice at him in a class, but on stage,
Magic.
Absolute magic. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the kind of rough diamond that I was always looking for.
Yeah.
Because I recognize my fight and my struggle, but it makes you strong.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I remember auditioning for the Royal Ballet Upper School, and they were looking at, long legs, and I was like, yep, check. And then we had to do this bend where they were testing your Achilles, and everyone was going down to the floor, and I was like, come on, just a little bit further. But it didn't seem to matter, obviously. But, you're just like, it's not quite the same as everyone else, but you're just like, I'll work on that. I'll make it better. I'll make it better.
Yeah,
that drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the drive does override it for sure.
Yeah.
Because you just got so much more passion.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was like that at the school. I hung about. I did extra work. I did work by myself. Yeah, if you want it enough. I mean, and that's a gift. That is a gift, wanting it that much, because again, I've come across dancers who you would think, if they'd had what I had in terms of desire and, beyond that, desperation at times to get there.
Yeah.
If I'd had that machine, if I'd had those feet, but then if I'd had all that, maybe I wouldn't have had that extra kind of fire.
Yeah, maybe. But I'm so glad that you did, because you got into the saddle as well, and then you journeyed through to choreography. So what happened between being in the company to becoming a choreographer?
Well, again, nothing. The two have always been in parallel with me. People often make the mistake of thinking that you turn to choreography when the rest of your career is over. That was never the case with me. I knew that I was in the company because of my ability as a character performer, and I was very lucky in that respect, because if you can do those roles, you get a shot at them really early. So within the first couple of years in the company, I was doing Dr. Coppelius that I'd graduated doing, when I was 19, 20 in the company.
That's amazing.
And the last performance that I gave with BRB was as Dr. Coppelius in a concert performance. And the depressing thing was my interpretation had not changed one single iota in something like 40 years.
I think that's a good thing.
Well, I thought, well, look, I've done that now. I never need to do it again. Now I know I've wrung everything out of that role. But I was doing things like that. I did Widow Simone again, really, really early. I was Galina Samsova's mother, and she was 40 years older than me, virtually. So that was great. And having that, as well as doing all of the core roles and everything, having that excitement, that responsibility was exciting. And again, Peter Wright, who hired me, he asked me to think about a ballet, doing a ballet for the company. And he asked me almost as soon as I joined the company, because it was less than 2 years, and I did my first professional piece for the company. So, there was, it was terrific. And that was it. Again, I enjoyed being a dancer. It hurt a lot because I never had the physical equipment. Injury was never far away from what I did, but I did do some wonderful roles, things like Petrushka and the Ashton things, Bottom in the Dream, Widow Simone, and Elaine. So I did virtually all of the roles that were there, that the kind of dancer I was, that I could have done.
Yeah.
And that was all exciting, but I never thought of myself as anything other than a choreographer. That was the thing that was always in my mind, that I was always thinking forwards about. And, Peter, I thank so much, because he gave me so many opportunities. And even when I fell down, the next opportunity was there. So he kept giving me the chances to choreograph, and I kept improving, because you don't make masterpieces in your first 2 or 3 efforts. And he just kept giving me the opportunities. So I always had those goals on the horizon.
Yeah.
And that never changed really up until when I left BRB and just became, a rather aging freelance choreographer. But even then, that has only changed in the past 6 months. I now do not have a new piece on the horizon for the first time since I was 19.
Wow.
Which
you finally get a break.
Well, and that's the way I'm looking at it. Yeah. So yeah. And choreography is all embracing, because you're thinking about designers, composers, all of the collaborators. If it's with different companies, it's a different kind of setup. So it's like a military campaign. It takes a lot of planning to come to a piece.
I was going to say, how do you create, especially a full-length ballet? Where does it begin? Is it that you hear a piece of music, or you just visualize something, or you just have dreams and make them reality? How does it work?
A full-length ballet, first you have to make a lot of short ballets, because nobody can nobody would be given that responsibility or that amount of trust. So I was interested in the full-length ballet from very early on. And again, I got the chance to make pieces very early on. And it's a completely different thing. It's like, well, how do you write a novel? Well, you don't just sit down and write a novel. I mean, you've got to write short stories. You've got to write a lot before you even. And then when you're writing a novel, how do you do that? You say, page 1. No, of course not. I've never written a novel, but I imagine that you've got the last page in mind even before you've got the first page in mind. And that's very much how it works with a full-length piece.
Right.
It's almost too complicated to go into. And I'm sure people do it in in very differing ways. Whenever people ask me to mentor or tell people about choreography, all I can say is, look, all I can tell you is how I do it, because I work differently to everybody else. I think differently to everybody else. An idea, very rarely a piece of music anymore. Maybe in the early days when you find a piece of music that you're trying to squash and condense and find another bit and stick that on and kind of, it's not the way to do it. And I know that, but then again, I know a lot of people who are very experienced that do it in exactly that same way. I can't do it that way, because the first thing for me is the idea. It's hard enough to get an idea which satisfies everything that a full-length ballet will. You know, it has to have kind of certain things.
Yeah.
You're putting it in front of a paying audience. Is this a piece which is going to attract an audience? Is this a piece which is even going to sell tickets? Well, if it's called Cinderella, yes, it is. If it's called Aladdin, yes, it is. If it's called Edward II, no, it isn't. So, you know, you're not going to say, right, I'm going to make Edward II for a touring company that has to put a lot of bums on seats and it has a family audience. I didn't make that ballet for that company. I made it for the Stuttgart Ballet, where I know you've got a more educated, a more erudite audience that is quite happy to sit for longer periods than the British audience. A ballet audience which doesn't think you've got to have fairies or swans in it. A ballet audience that thinks it is not absolutely necessary that this ballet has to be good for 4-year-olds. And we have a ballet audience like that in the regions in this country, which is why Edward II, it didn't sell tickets when I did it here. So, you know, what subject, what audience, you know, what kind of piece are we making here? Then it's about, is it just the right idea for a ballet? Because, you know, I've made full-length ballets which haven't been the right idea, which have fallen down because of that. I convinced myself that they were the right idea, but they weren't. Composer, wow. You know, because as Fred said, Sir Fred, you know, your music is 80% of it. You know, you get the wrong score or you get a horrible score, that's going to turn people off straight away. Yeah. So finding the right composer, that's a huge thing. And sometimes I'll find a composer that I think, in the case of a composer I worked with called Sally Beamish, where I just heard her music and I thought, she could write a ballet. I'd love to work with this person. Wow. And then I started looking around for the subject and going through all my old ideas and things, and you managed to find the right kind of fit. Same thing with Beauty and the Beast, which I did. An idea which I'd had for 20 odd years. I knew it had to have a new score, because you can't just go and pick out music and just squash it to your means. It's not satisfying. And then I heard this one piece by a Canadian composer and I just went, that's Beauty and the Beast. That's the sound. That's the sound. Wow. I want. So then that marriage. And then the journey really starts. Then there's working out the scenario. I break everything down. I make a minutage of it. Okay. So I know exactly how long this will last, how long this will last, 30 seconds to tell this piece of narrative, 1 minute, 30 seconds. It's a female variation, 5 minutes for a core number, you know. Then you're looking at the length of the piece. Is it 2 acts? Do the climaxes fall twice? Is it 3 acts? It's so complicated. Yes. And I've been doing that since my second piece, which was music which was arranged, which was the Snow Queen, where I didn't have original music, but music which was arranged. Yes. And that's the first time that I wrote out in detail, you know, this has to be this kind of length. And now, that's the way I work. And that's then before even the dance steps. That's even before a note is written, because of course the steps come out of the music. Yeah. And usually the music can take a year and a half, 2 years. So the last full-length ballet I did, which was a Christmas Carol, which was written by Sally Beamish, it took us, it was 2.5 years from starting to talk about the music to the first performance.
Oh my goodness.
And then you literally, in Sally's case, because again, every composer is different. Some composers just leave me with it. And with others, like with Sally, we go in order, more or less. And then things kind of start cross-referencing, because you don't just write totally original music from first page to last. Themes come back. You start getting ideas for characters. Then, because she's a wonderful composer, those ideas start cross-referencing. And even then, after I've worked with somebody like Sally, when it comes to the stage, I start hearing things differently to how I've heard them over, that whole period. Suddenly I go, she did that. She brought that idea back, and then we look at each and every single piece. Sally's really good because she works now. Most composers now, they work with a computer programs where they can write directly into a computer on the score, and that'll give them a sound approximation. She has the best equipment. So literally when she writes something, she writes it into full score, almost. Not entirely full score, short score, but it's pretty much all the orchestration is there, and then you get a playback link from that. So I'm listening to the orchestra almost immediately.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible because when I first started, it was a piano short score that was an approximation of the orchestration, which you then had to get a company pianist to, can you just bang this out and put it on a cassette? And then I'd listen on the cassette, and the first time you heard the orchestration was 3 nights before the premiere.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, absolutely terrifying.
Yes.
And now it's so much easier and it's so much better, because you can get all the colors and really discover all the difference in the dynamics.
Yes.
I mean, there's still a lot of different things when it finally is played on orchestra. And when I hear it on the orchestra, I can't even listen to the computerized orchestra again. It just does not sound the same. So there's still a progression in that way. It's not like taking a record and rehearsing to a record of a Beethoven symphony and then coming to the orchestra and going, yeah, but we've been doing it this speed and, with this accent. That's not the way to do it. That's not the way to do it. So then gradually, as I say, 2 years later, you end up with the finished thing.
There's obviously the choreography itself and the lighting.
That's the last thing.
The choreography is the last thing.
The steps arrive 5-6 weeks before the premiere. That's it. 2.5 years, maybe longer, maybe 30 years dwelling on a project before you even find the composer. The choreography comes in the last 6 weeks. Yeah. Wow. I wish it didn't at times, but that's the way that it works. I revise virtually everything I do, because by the time it's there, by the time you get to the first night, I watch the first night and I go, that's wrong, got to change that, that's not right, got to do that again. And the great thing with BRB was when I made a full length there, you'd get maybe something about 30 shows. Yeah. So 30 shows, I'd be changing it. So the difference between the 30th show and the first night would be huge.
Yeah.
Often huge.
I remember that with Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah. I mean, I changed it loads. And then when it came back, when we revived it, I changed it again. There was a famous point in the final part of the Let Us See, it was. you in the score, you letter everything, letter A, B, C, D, and then,
Right.
you get to the third act, you've got letter A, letter B, B, or something like that. It's just the way for the musicians to find their way around the score. Letter C in the final pas de deux just became famous because I changed it 9 times.
Wow.
I changed this one section, and we just used to go from letter C, and it just became a joke with the principals and with the notators and the pianists. I got there though, but it was literally version 9. I just was never happy with it. The last piece I did was in Japan, and I watched the videos of the opening night and the second night recently, and was thoroughly depressed. I was very pleased over there because it went so well and the dancers did so well. And I was going, I'll watch that again, and I'll show my wife, Jennifer. And I watched it and I was like, it's too fast. It's too slow. That's not right. That's not right. So there we go. Next time they do it, I'll have to go back and change it, revise it.
So how would you describe your choreography? Because it's known by dancers as demanding, athletic, and exciting. But how would you view it?
It depends which piece. I mean, it really depends which piece you're talking about. I know that what the things that I do sometimes are demanding, are difficult. I mean, I've made some solos, particularly for Robert Parker, where I always got carried away. I mean, I did the piece called the Shakespeare Suite, which was danced to Duke Ellington, but all the characters in it were Shakespearean characters. And I did this solo for him, which was Hamlet. And I remember the first time he ran it in the studio in a full call. And of course, Bob, as we called him, did everything 110%. And he was just green at the end. I mean, literally, his face went green. And it stayed like that because I saw him a bit later. I saw him about an hour later after the rehearsal. And I said, I'm going to change it, Bob. Don't worry. I'm going to make a little cut again or something like that. And I remember thinking, he's still green.
Oh, wow. There's a lot of turns.
It was hard. Yeah. But sometimes, you never know. And I mean, I did change it. I did make it slightly easier. Not a whole lot easier. But, there was a young lad did that solo at a school performance at Elmhurst. And he did it.
Wow.
And he's a student. Again, I remember doing when I did the Cinderella solo for the boys, the boys' variation. They found it so difficult. I went to the Ilkley seminars about 3-4 years ago, and Ian Mackay, who was the original prince, had taught it to the boys there. And 2 of the boys were going up from White Lodge to the senior school, and 2 of the boys did it. They just did it.
Wow.
And yet principals at the time I made it were struggling. And it's like, sometimes you've got to sort of step back from things and go, that's what it is. That's what the solo is. Okay, here I go. I know what it is, but sometimes when you make a new piece and people go, oh, that's impossible. And it comes back, and 10 years later, everybody can do it. The big lift in Cinderella, again, the big one-arm lift that Ian did every single time. And every time, I mean, literally, maybe 20% of the time with the other boys in the company, that lift came off, or they had to readjust it or drop it. Oh. Now, 95% of the guys that do that lift, it works every time.
Oh, wow.
What is it? I don't know.
I guess, is it that the standard is higher now? There's more equipment, like in terms of getting yourself ready for a performance, like working out at the gym, doing heavy lifting, all that sort of thing that maybe wasn't there.
Yeah. But I do think a lot of it just is the somebody has to come along and they have to break that mold. Again, another boys' variation. I made the solo in Carmina Burana, which is a tough solo. And I made it on the guy that I made it on. He couldn't really do it. Second cast guy kind of struggled his way through it. At the time, young Robert Parker was in his, I think it was his second year in the company. And I put him down. I just learn it, Bob. And of course, you know, he did it. When we did it, I said, look, I'm going to have to put him on first night cast at the Opera House because he dances the hell out of this thing. And he did it on the first night at the Opera House. And he just absolutely nailed it. And the audience went crazy. And, you know, he finishes lying flat on the floor.
Yes, I remember.
And of course, Bob lay there. And of course, the audience just kept clapping. And it was like, he's going to have to get up and take a call. I don't think he could get up, quite frankly. But again, suddenly there was Robert Parker, second year corps de ballet, who just said, yeah, you can do this. You can do this. It's not impossible. And now everybody does it. You know, it's hard, but now they can do it. Funny.
Yeah. And what's been your absolute favourite piece to create?
Every piece I create when I start is my favourite piece. If the rehearsals go well, if I'm inspired, if there's a real buzz going on, that's the second kind of hurdle to cross.
Right.
If it continues to go well all the way through getting the costumes, getting the music right, getting the show on, if I'm happy with it and I'm not sitting there just going, I've got to change that and that's not right and that's not right, that's fine. That's the next hurdle. If the audience likes it, if I get away with it, with the critics are not too mean or bitchy, then you've got something, you know, you can feel happy about. But there's a lot of hurdles to pass along the way.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would say their favourite work was a work which nobody liked. You know, I mean, I'm not that perverse, although, you know, I've got works which I appear to like a lot more than the critics did, or even audiences. But certainly there are moments where something just clicks, it just works. And for me, Hobson's Choice was one of those, which was an extraordinary thing because, you know, I said to you, it can take 2 years, 2.5 years, going from the scenario to first night performance with a new score. And Hobson's Choice was, if I remember correctly, it was my first commissioned full-length score. And that piece, from beginning to write the scenario to the first night, was 9 months. I mean, seat of your pants is not an exaggeration. I remember doing I used to go over to the composers, Paul Reed, and I used to sit next to him at the piano because he composed on the piano. And he would literally get the gist of the piece kind of there. He'd have some scraps of ideas. We'd play through something like that. Then he might make a recording straight onto cassette. I'd go home with it. He'd redo it, make another cassette. I was there nearly every night for about 6 weeks. And it was, the race there was not in writing the piece. It was in getting it in quickly enough that it could be orchestrated. Because Paul wrote straight onto piano, he did orchestrate, but, you know, I mean, not even Mozart could have orchestrated that as quickly as it was done. Gosh. So there was input from other orchestrators. But I remember doing the Salvation Army. I went the night before. He wrote it. He then wrote it out into piano score and sent a recording, which was couriered over the next morning to Sadler's Wells, and I choreographed it in the afternoon. And that wasn't the only bit. I mean, literally, it was coming that thick and that fast. And
oh my goodness!
It was thrilling because I was so in command of the material. I knew the choreography it was just there. I just absolutely had it. I never went back on anything. I had one blip just before we stopped for Christmas. And I remember being in the opera room. And it's the only time I've ever had a drink and choreographed. Because they don't mix, you know. They don't mix. But I literally had a glass of champagne because we were finishing that day for Christmas, for the Christmas break. And it premiered in January, so literally. And I got to a point where I didn't know what to do. Just this little silly point, I didn't know what to do. And somebody said, for glass of champagne. So I did. And there's one little bit which was choreographed under the influence of champagne.
That's so funny. Which bit was it?
Yeah, I know exactly which bit it was. It's one particular bit where Maggie comes in and she's fuming. Now, why is she fuming? Oh yeah, she's arguing with her father because she said she's marrying Will. So she comes out and she does this fiendishly difficult thing. And it's one step where she goes up to the back and she slams the counter.
Oh,
and
yes.
The two sisters disappear. And she does a step coming forward. It's evil, that step. It's evil. But that's the step.
I love that. I love that. I can picture you giggling as you're making the step. Just quickly while I have your attention, if you can please make sure you subscribe, as it really, really does help to boost the show. Thank you all so much. All right, let's get back to it. It's so funny sitting opposite you today because when you put your hands up, it took me back.
Oh, really?
It took me back to a point where I was going, oh, we're not doing it very well. But actually, it was you going, that choreography needs changing. But we're there going, God, we're not doing it well. It's so funny how you can read it like that. But yeah. And I'm very clear with dancers now because I know that, you know, I get really mad, but I'm getting mad with myself. 98 times out of 100. Occasionally, it's not me, it's them. It's you. But usually it's me, and I'm usually mad at myself. I had a day like that in Japan. I just had a day where you lose confidence in what you're doing, and then that snowballs. And then you can't think of anything. And then you just become aware that you're losing the dancers because, of course, then you don't want to sit and look at me getting pissed off, you know. But I'm very clear. I say, it's not you, it's me. I'm really sorry. And, you know, sometimes you'll have a break. Sometimes you don't come back. But every now and then I have a day like that. And it's me I'm getting mad with. Yeah. It's good to know. I know. Yeah. I'm trying to think of when it was. Was it Edwards the Second? There was a piece where it was the quarter ballet. We were running on, and there was a lot of moving around, and it was all girls. And I cannot remember what it's called for the life of me.
Was it short piece? Long
it was
piece?
A short piece.
Right.
We stepped onto point. Dun, 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 dun. Where's that come from? Oh my goodness. It was like, so we'd step onto point, up onto fifth, and then we'd step, swish the other way, opposite, then running.
Oh, I know what that was. Oh, I know exactly what piece that was. That was, and even I can't remember the title. It was Concert Fantasy.
Concert Fantasy.
Yes.
That's funny. It was stored right back there, I thought, but wow.
Tchaikovsky.
Yes.
Great piece of music.
Yes. Yeah. Fantastic.
There were some bits in that I really liked. I was really pleased with it, but there were some bits which weren't good. Yeah.
I just thought some of it was a bit difficult, but then again, it's like,
No, it was, it was fun.
But I liked it because it reminded me of a ballet that you did. I mean, it wasn't exactly the same, but the moves reminded me of Gallentries a little bit. Okay. And obviously you choreographed on my auntie, Karen Paisley.
And, you know, a bizarre thing here, that is being done by Ballet Arkansas.
Okay.
in next month.
Oh, wow.
I said, well, you remember Ravenna? Ravenna?
Yes, yes.
Rav was, I think she was second cast to Fee Chadwick in that piece. And Ravenna teaches at a university now in America.
Oh, wow.
And she did Gallantries on her students because she knew the piece so well. And she said, I'd love to do it. So they did it and they sent me a video of it. And I was going, oh, what's it going to be like? They were really good.
Oh, great.
They were really good. And then she rang me just before Christmas and said, I'm associated with this little company, Ballet Arkansas. You know, what would you think about me doing Gallentries on them? And I said, go for it, whatever.
Nice.
So they're doing it as we speak.
Oh,
so I watched
that's
it.
amazing.
I watched it the other day, actually. Yes, I did a nice solo for Karen. In that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's the best solo.
Is it the best? Yeah,
yeah. Because she had such a lovely jump, and she had this lovely kind of sprite-like thing.
Yes.
So
I used to watch that in my living room when I was about 14 or 15, so I knew all of the parts.
Was that the film, the BBC?
Yes.
Film?
Yeah.
It's amazing when something like that is filmed, when it's available in that respect. It's amazing how it gets into the consciousness of people. It's like Penguin Cafe, for instance. It wouldn't have been half the notoriety that it has had it not been filmed. The number of people that watched that film when they were young and were influenced by it. Stan Welch, director of Houston Ballet, terrific choreographer. He said to me once, I wouldn't have started dancing was it not for the kangaroo rat.
Wow.
Just watching and doing the kangaroo rat.
That's incredible.
It was a video he had, So you're like, wow, that's...
It's a big influence, isn't it?
Amazing. And when those things are available. So it got into the schools, it got onto the syllabus. So, a whole generations of kids doing dance studies and things were watching that piece.
Yeah.
And then buying tickets. And then buying tickets as adults.
Yeah, because you want to see it through adult eyes, don't you?
The young lady who was the little kid in it, the original kid, turned up once. She's 40-something now, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. So she turned up and said, obviously, that's amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. How did you get from choreographer to working in the Birmingham Royal Ballet as director?
Yeah. Interesting. I went from my wife had our first son, and Anthony Dowell was becoming director of the Royal Ballet, and he called me and said, would I be interested in joining the company? And it was a sort of perfect timing, really, I thought. So I said yes, and I joined, and I had a couple of good years as a member of the company, dancing with the company. And then I just got ground down by the direction the company was taking.
Okay.
I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with my part in the company. I was doing nothing. And I just knew that I had a lot more, not just as a choreographer, taking my place amongst other choreographers, dealing with the politics of the place, because there were a lot of politics, a lot of people fighting for different corners, and I'd never experienced that as part of the other company. And I just realized after a while that I was really unhappy. And I just thought, I'm wasting my life here, I'm wasting my life here. And serving time. And there were just too many people there that just served time. I felt disconnected from any kind of sense of audience or community, which is something that is so much more powerful in the other company. Right. You felt much more part of a community. You had the difference in all the theatres we went to, the difference in the fans. And I just thought,
Gosh.
I'm not in the right place.
Right.
I just thought, I'm not in the right place. So I just said, I'm done.
How many years were you at the company?
I think it was about 7.
7 years.
Yeah. And I'd had a couple of rather expensive failures. Partly my own fault, partly just lack of guidance, of any kind of real sense of, because Peter would always tell me, and I could always tell if Peter liked something or didn't like something or wouldn't come back.
Mm-hmm.
He would tell me what he did like or what he thought we needed, and it didn't, whether I disagreed or not, there was the information. It was just like silence.
Yeah.
It's just like there's not a direction here.
Yeah.
And it was the time of when they were bringing in suddenly big names were being attracted. Eric came, a couple of other dancers. Sylvie Guillaume arrived and started telling everybody how it should be done, including Sir Fred and Matt.
Oh my goodness.
Other people started changing Madam's choreography, and I just thought, I can't button this. I can't shut my mouth here. And a curious thing had happened was quite early on when I joined the company, Jeremy Isaacs had spoken to me. Sadler's Wells Royal Ballet had moved to Birmingham, and he said, how would you feel about becoming, at some point in the future, director? And I went, absolutely not. Absolutely not a chance. No, I'm a choreographer. And that was it. A few people had said things, other people that had kind of mentioned, moving into directorship or something. It was not an ambition. It was not something that I thought until that point. And I suddenly thought, I wonder what it means, But that was something which was kind of a distance away. But at the same time, I got some panicky calls when I stood down at the Royal Ballet. And a lot of people wanted to make a to-do out of it, And I said, well, Jeremy was one of them, and I said, and what about BRB? I said, is that an offer that's still open? And he said, well, that's a few years away. And I said, fine, okay, well, if it happens, come see me. So then I was sort of out on my own for a couple of years. So I was just freelancing, and thankfully, a few nice things fell into place. But pretty soon after that, I got a call saying, what, are you serious? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I think I'm ready to do something like that. And the main reason was, obviously, I had been choreographically a little bit frustrated at the Royal Ballet. I'd had opportunities and blown a couple of them. But I think the real sense behind it was, I want to be part of a company where you're happy to go every day, where everybody gets a voice, where everybody is kind of part of it.
Yes.
That we can take risks and we can do whatever we like, but it's got to be exciting and it's got to be fun.
Absolutely.
Because that's what it was the first 10 years of my career. And, I was lucky because I got nice things to do and stuff like that. But on the whole, we were a pretty happy crew, and we were a unit. At times it was us against the world. And I like that. And I never got that at the Royal Ballet because it's such a big organization. It's so disparate. There are so many dancers. There's so much difference between the people at the top and the people at the bottom. And it never was that way in the other company.
Yeah,
it genuinely was a family. And I know big companies that think they're a family. They're not a family like we were a family, doing everything together, not just doing the job and then all going to our homes, because we didn't have homes, because we were in Sunderland.
Yes,
So,
Sunderland.
Just, it was, we did our work, and then we all went to the best pub or the best bar or the best restaurant or whatever. But it was all, the experience was the same whether you were the star or the youngest kid in the company.
Yeah, agreed.
So I wanted to be part of that, and also to be, again, to be a larger part, to make ballet, which was not just a show, which could mean something more to people. And I certainly saw that, and that was actually the mandate for the company when it went to Birmingham, a big mandate for education in all of its kind of different colours. So that was it. And then a couple of years later, it got real, and I got the job, and I'm really happy that I did, because it. I never suspected particularly that would bring out something in me that choreography just doesn't and didn't. There are things and decisions you have to make as a choreographer, which you are far more prepared to do for the good of the piece than I ever was as a director, or even as a directing choreographer. You can't just say, "You're not right for this, out you go," in a piece I'm choreographing, because the person I'm saying it to is somebody I hired to be in the company. So there's a lot more thinking about, how is this going to impact? What's this going to do to that person? Because this person I'm invested in,
Yeah.
And again, I always said, I never hired anybody for the corps de ballet for BRB. I hired everybody to be a principal. They might not make it, but I didn't hire them. Oh, they'll be all right in the corps. I never did that.
Yeah.
Well, I tell a lie. In the last couple of years, when things got difficult, I hired a couple of people I hired some people that I just thought, okay, well, that's as good as I'm going to get, and we need the numbers and things like that.
Right.
But generally, up until when things got really difficult, no, I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed, and I'm proud of the fact that some dancers I was able to take as kids, see something in them when they were at the school, and take them all the way to principal level. And that's a real thrill. You don't get that from choreography.
No, that's true. I feel it's amazing speaking to you today, because I'm getting some element of closure somehow, and an understanding of something that I used to isolate myself in the company, and I didn't really speak to anyone. But if I had just started to speak, I'm realizing that it wasn't anything you did. It was me making myself feel like I couldn't speak. But actually, if I had just spoken, things could have been so different. Because like you said, it was a family, and I was perhaps not putting in my bit as a family member.
I don't think that's hard to do, because, certain people are much more outgoing than others. I always admired and was a little envious when I was a dancer of the person that could come in and everybody took to them. Because when I joined the company, I think people thought that I was quite aloof, and I wasn't. I just didn't. I'm not big on small talk. I'm not big on niceties. And I suppose at that time, like you looked at me and thought, "Oh, what's he doing?" I was wanting to go places, but not at the expense of other people. I wasn't like, and again, I've known dancers like that that'll trample all over everybody and anything. And I've actually sat down with some of those dancers and said, "How can you be this way? How can you be so cutthroat and ambitious that half the people in the company hate you?"
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. Literally going, I don't know how you can do that.
Yeah.
I know how one can make enemies out of difficulty, but to to do that and know you're doing it, to stand in the middle of that stage and do a solo role, knowing that half of the people around there want you to fall over.
Oh God, that would be horrendous.
It's hard enough anyway, but to know. Yeah. But yeah, I've known dancers like that. Not many, but there are people like that.
Yeah.
That thrive on.
Yeah. See, I think I was just a bit too shy back then.
Yeah,
I wasn't shy on stage.
No.
I was shy off stage, but actually you needed to, I hate saying play the game, but you know what I mean. I wish I had just spoken up a little bit more. Yeah. And
but it's hard.
Yeah, it is hard,
and especially when you're the young one in the company. Just because you start voicing up like that, it can go the other way.
True.
They go,
yes,
get her, and again, I've known people that do that, not maliciously, but just because they've got it quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got it. They've got it.
Yeah.
They've seen what I'm after, or something like that, or they understand. They can see something and are quick to say, "Oh, we do it this way. No, we used to do it this way." And they're right. And people are clever clogs, but they're good people to have around.
Yeah. I'm definitely more feisty now, and I'm glad. And the things that I want to do now, and the fact that this podcast, I am speaking up. Maybe it's a little late for me, but it's in good time for quite a lot of people to feel like this is a platform to speak and God. So, everything happens for a reason. And if I wasn't shy, maybe I wouldn't be doing this. And, so there's a journey for everybody. Yeah. So I think, not to live with regret, but to understand that your journey is your journey. Different. And you learn from the things that you didn't do and the things that you did.
Yeah. No, I used to be pretty much the same. I didn't speak up, didn't do small talk. I do that a lot more now. I'm quite happy to speak to people in the streets now, because I don't care as much anymore. I'm of an age where I don't care if people think that, then whatever.
And that's it, isn't it? It's I don't care anymore.
Yeah, I think that kind of, that comes with maturity, doesn't it? But I understand absolutely what you're saying, because I was a little bit like that when I was first in the company. And people just thought, I think they thought I was aloof and a bit above them or better than them. I absolutely didn't. I just I didn't muck in as easily. And then, it makes it hard.
It does.
I always admired people that just came in,
Definitely. What's been your greatest achievement in your career?
I think it's related in that way, in that I am most really glad that I was put in a position where I could effect things for other people. And being the director of a company, it gives you that ability. It gives you a power, which, over the past few years, we have seen has been very misplaced in some people. But in my hands, I like to think it wasn't. I like the fact that, known or otherwise, I have been able to, what is the word? To help people.
Yeah.
It's just that. It's just that. Either by professionally advancing them, or by, giving that kind of pastoral care, which everybody sort of needs.
Yeah.
I've always been that. Ever since being that kid myself, when nobody was interested, where people were actively kind of saying, "You're no good, nobody wants you." That you should not ever say to any human being ever. Because if she'd said, "You'll never do Prince Siegfried," I might have gone, okay, but I can do something else.
Yes.
But to say that anybody, and I see it in people who have classical ambitions. I've seen it in youngsters that I know don't have classical ability, that would really be better off in a different line.
Right.
And sometimes That's hard to say to people.
Yeah.
It is hard to say to people, but it's the right thing to say to people. And it's also right to say, I might be completely wrong. You prove me wrong, you know.
I like that sentence.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got that straight away from just talking to people where I'd said something to somebody and they said, well, that's what you think. And I'm great. Prove me wrong.
Wow. I would never have said that to you.
No. And it was said in anger. It was said by somebody in anger. Wow. But I said, you know, it hit home. Yeah, I say that. Unfortunately, I'm the guy giving the jobs out, or I'm the guy giving the roles out at the moment. But yeah, I might be wrong. I mean, I'm not. That's fine. You know, I'm paid to make choices. I have to choose between this person and that person. You can't both do it. You know, that's the hard thing.
Yeah.
But at the same, but it's more important than that, and it's deeper than that. It doesn't matter. Things are more important. Things are more important. You know, I remember when girls used to come to me, I'm pregnant. You know, like, fantastic, because it's more important. It's more important. Literally, great. That's wonderful. That's something for life. This isn't. This isn't. Doing this role isn't. It's not. There are more important things.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
So your biggest achievement's been director.
I think it's just being there as long as I was there and able to kind of effect that much. Just help people, and also, you know, to make people. Just to make them valued in whatever sense it was, you know. There's always this thing when you join a company, you know, you think, I've joined a company, that's it, that's the end, I've achieved. No. When am I going to be this? When are you going to make me this? Or when am I going to get wrong? And then they get that. Yeah. And then they shut up physically. Now, when am I going to be? You know, it never ends. It never ends. I mean, even when people get to be principals, it's about roles and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, and what I started doing, rather than posting or even speaking to people, knowing that they were going to be disappointed they weren't doing this or that, is I would, for the principals, I used to write out a plan of the year. Right. So, I'm sorry, I don't think you're this kind of role, but here you're doing this and here you're doing that.
Yeah.
And that would kind of make them think, so I'm not doing this role in September. What's going to happen in December? Am I doing this in March?
Fair enough,
you know, so you're never going
to. I think that's really good, actually.
I've spent literally hours agonizing over a particular meeting that I've got with somebody and how they're going to react and how they're going to be disappointed by something or something like that. It hurts, you know, it's painful. I mean, you're not just blasting away at people. Oh, sorry, you know.
Yeah.
It really made me feel. The funniest thing I did, I spent days working up this conversation of why I was taking one of the principals out of a role. Then I had the meeting and I said, look, so-and-so, I'm afraid I'm going to have to take you out of this role. I think there are other people more suited. And this particular dancer said, I've never done that role. Not literally. I'd spent 3 days working up, he's going to be so upset by this. You know, he'd never done it. I also promoted somebody twice in one evening.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. No, I mean, I didn't promote them twice.
You've been the same person.
Promoted them to a particular role twice in one evening.
Was that the same evening as the champagne?
It was, I'm just going to say, it was in Spain. It was the end of the tour, and it was about 1 a.m. And we'd all had some.
Oh, that's so
We'd all
funny.
had some red wine.
That's really funny.
I'd already again, it's you know, you've got a list, and the way I used to do it is I used to blitz it in the last 2 days. So I literally just side look to somebody and go, soloist next year, like that, you know. So I didn't want to post it on the board because they always said, but I used to do it and then get the hell out of Dodge because if I promoted 10 people that year, there were 50 people that weren't promoted. Mm-hmm. And several of them unhappily weren't promoted. So I used to literally blitz it in the last 2 days and then go. give them summer,
really
give them
good.
summer to sort it out.
Yes.
But no, I mean, didn't always work.
Sure.
Emails still worked.
Emails, yeah.
Emails the next day.
Oh my goodness. I mean, you've had such an incredible career. And you said to me that you're taking a break now. Because my last question was,
No, you said
any
I'm taking a break. You said I'm taking a break.
I said you're taking a break, but you're taking a break.
But I just haven't had any job offers. So, yes, I'm resting. No, it's I am freelance now. And I've been really lucky since I left BRB and COVID hit, because literally the last 3 choreographic jobs that I had were all bucket list pieces. I mean, major pieces that I've wanted to do for 40 years plus. And every one of them, I got away with. They worked. Even though I want to change them all. I'm not happy with them, but the companies were happy with them and the audiences were happy with them. So I'm really fortunate in that way. For the rest of it, I am much more sanguine now. I don't hang around the profession. I never wanted to do that. I'm not somebody that turns up at all the shows going, I'm still here. I'm still alive. I'm just not like that. So I am out of the profession a little bit in that respect. And, whatever the Almighty determines, I will be happy with that. In other words, if I get job offers, then that's what the Lord wants. If I don't get job offers, that's what the Lord wants. And I will be happy in either case, because I have done pretty much everything I want to do. I'm still plagued by ideas, but it's hard work, and it doesn't get easier when you get older. It actually gets harder because you're less cocksure, and you know what the downside of it can be. You know how much money can be lost.
Yeah.
You know how much disappointment you can create. So, you know how much is riding on these productions, having been a director, having seen it from the other side. So either way, I'll be happy. And I still have things to do. They're reviving Aladdin in Japan in 2 months. So I'm back in Japan. They're doing, Christmas Carol again next Christmas in Helsinki.
Lovely.
So I'm back there. And I am doing, it was a new piece, a piece I did for the school many years ago, which I always thought had greater potential, called The Spider's Feast. And I'm redoing that for Sarasota Ballet in Florida. And that, again, is next Christmas. So I'm still busy.
Yes.
I'm still busy, and I'm enjoying new pastures.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's been such an honor. I still can't believe you're sat in front of me after so many years.
Yeah. And
it's really nice to feel a connection with you and not have the director sort of thing that I obviously put in my mind. So it's been so almost therapeutic for me, and it's just incredible to have you on the show.
Great.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I loved seeing David again. It was a really therapeutic experience, and what an incredible man. If you don't know David's work, make sure you check it out. I've put all the details into the show notes. Although I seemed calm during the recording, what you didn't know was that I was pacing around and completely leapt out of my skin when I saw David walking up my steps. My goodness. A special thank you to David for being such a captivating guest. I feel so fortunate. What a show.